All right, so here we have our mid-segment notes. These videos are probably going to be split into 3 sections. So, in our first one, we are answering the question, how do I use the mid-segment theorem to solve problems? So, before we use the theorem to solve problems, let's first define what a mid-segment is. So, a mid-segment of a triangle is a line segment that connects the midpoints of 2 sides. Every triangle has 3 midsegments. So again, a midsegment of a triangle is a line segment that connects the midpoints of 2 sides. Every triangle has 3 midsegments. So we're going to draw a picture. We're going to draw a triangle A, B, C. Triangle A, B, C. So, on the side AB, we're going to put the midpoint. We're going to estimate that it's right about here, and we're going to label that midpoint M. And I want you to recall, how do I show in a picture that something is a midpoint? We put tick marks on either side. So, here's the midpoint of AB. On BC, we're going to put the midpoint in there, and we're going to label it N. To show that N is the midpoint of BC, we're going to put 2 tick marks on either side. If we connect M, which is a midpoint of one side, to N, which is the midpoint of another side, we've drawn our first midsegment. Before we move on, I want to interpret some things. If M is the midpoint, then AM would be congruent to MB. If N is a midpoint of BC, then BN would be congruent to NC. So if I tell you that the midpoint of AC is P, then we should know that AP would be congruent to PC. And we would put 3 tick marks on either side. Now, if I connect M to P, a midpoint of one side to the midpoint of another side, then I've drawn another midsegment. If I connect P to N, a midpoint of one side to a midpoint of another side, then I've drawn my third midsegment. So, MN, NP, and PM are midsegments. So this tells you what a midsegment is. Below, when I tell you the theorem is going to tell you properties of a midsegment, its significance. The theorem is what helps you solve problems. This is just a definition. So, our theorem says the segment connecting the midpoints of 2 sides of a triangle is parallel to the third side and is half as long. So what that means is if we draw a triangle. We're going to draw another triangle. This is still going to be triangle ABC. Triangle A, B, C. It says the segment connecting the midpoints of two sides. So the midsegment is parallel to the third side and twice as long. So on our triangle ABC, we're going to draw in the midpoint of AB and label it D. And we show that D is the midpoint by putting tick marks on either side. We're going to draw in the midpoint of side BC and label it E. Now to show that E is the midpoint, we're going to put 2 tick marks on either side. So we have D and E, and we're going to connect them, drawing our midsegment. DE is a midsegment. This theorem says that the midsegment is parallel to the third side. So if this is side 1, and this is side 2, the sides that contain the midpoints, then DE is parallel to the third side. So DE is parallel to AC. Now that is just one part of our theorem. The other part says that it is half as long. So if DE is half as long, that means DE equals half of AC. Now, one way that students prefer to look at this, one way that's a lot easier to look at this, is if you're not comfortable with halving. Remember, half means times 1/2. You might be comfortable with doubling. Doubling means times 2. So, half and double have a direct relationship. One way that we can look at this, the midsegment is half as long as the third side, is that if we double our midsegment, then it equals our third side. This is what you will see me using to solve problems. Doubling is a lot easier than dealing with a fraction. On the back, we're going to practice solving some problems, and we'll get to that in the next video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.